Hi everyone, welcome back to part 2. Firstly, I'm sharing my story to educate and highlight the experiences of many pregnant women and their families, especially people of colour. Often it is not talked about. It is by no means intended to scare or discourage. I just want to provide a platform and a voice for those who have been silenced by their trauma. So, I got to around 36 weeks, and at that point I was just waiting for my delivery date. They were planning to deliver me between 37 and 38 weeks. That day, I had a routine 36-week midwife appointment. It was actually supposed to be later in the afternoon, but there was a cancellation, so my midwife called and asked if I could come in earlier. So I went in, took my little boy with me, and when I got there, I'd mentioned that I still didn't have my date. I was concerned as it was supposed to be the next week and I needed to make childcare plans. So she agreed, and she then called the triage. Interestingly enough, I wasn't even on the list, which was a big surprise and a concern. Thankfully, my midwife wasn't one to mess with and she got it sorted. Then we went on to listen to the baby's heartbeats. The student midwife noted that twin 2's heart rate was decelerating. Triage was called and we had to go straight to the hospital. Being a midwife, I knew this could go two ways. Either we get there and all is well, or I end up being rushed in for a cesarean section. So I called my husband and said we needed to go to the hospital. Worst case scenario, though not worst, the babies might be born today. When we got to the hospital, the unit was really busy. I was taken to the ward to be seen. I suddenly started having right-sided abdominal pain. They struggled to record both the heart rates properly on the monitor. The pain I was feeling started to intensify. Before I knew it, the emergency bell was pulled and suddenly the room was filled with lots of people. They were worried because both heart rates looked like they were dropping and I was in pain. The consultant came in and said, "You've done really well to get this far, but we don't know what's going on, so we think it's time to deliver the babies." I agreed and thought, okay, this is happening, though I hadn't actually processed it. The midwife then came in and introduced herself to me, informing me that she would be the one going to theatre with me. My response, "Oh, we are actually going to theatre." So I was prepped for theatre and I remember having to sit for the spinal to be sighted. It felt like it took a while to get the spinal in, and honestly it was quite uncomfortable. Eventually it was done. I was positioned for the C-section. The anaesthetist previously had said to me that I'd feel pressure but no pain, so I was reassuring myself with this. However, when the section started, I felt pain from the knife to skin. I shouted for them to stop and then they stopped. They informed me if the spinal wasn't working for me, then they would have to convert to a general anaesthetic. This made me quite emotional as I wanted to see my twins being born. My husband was sat beside me and we had previously planned to record the birth, so he did. They then did another block check and the C-section resumed. Unfortunately, I still felt pain and discomfort during the cesarean. However, I thought I'd possibly imagined this. But over 2 weeks later, when we looked back at the video recording, it showed and confirmed that I was in pain and in discomfort. Thankfully, the twins were born, screaming and crying. It was a surreal but perfect moment. It was everything. Later, while I was in recovery, the anaesthetist came in, kind of abruptly, and said, "You have scoliosis." And I said, "No, I don't." He insisted, "You definitely do," because that was a difficult spinal. I told him my brother does, but it's never been picked up in me. He seemed almost annoyed about it, like he took it personally. I just remember feeling so upset and confused because that wasn't the moment for confrontation. I'd literally just had surgery. Plus, being a midwife, I know this would be important information that I would need to convey to an anaesthetist. He then did his checks and left. My husband and I looked at each other like, what on earth was that? It was so unprofessional. But despite everything, the panic, the pain, the way it all unfolded, my babies were safe. That is what mattered most. It definitely wasn't the birth I expected, but it's the one that brought them here safely. We were thankful. At this stage, I felt overwhelmed by emotions. It wasn't until looking back now that I realised it was merely the beginning of a significant trauma I was about to endure.